Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. This afternoon, we're going to explore the various decodable series available through OUP, and you will learn about the supporting resources for each series offered for free through Oxford OWL. If you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A section, and if time permits, we'll answer them today. Otherwise, your Oxford Education consultant will be in touch with you as soon as possible after the session. I'd like to start by telling you a couple of things about Oxford University Press that you may not know. We're a non-for-profit organisation. Oxford University Press is a department of the University of Oxford, and our mission is to create world-class educational resources and make them available as widely as possible, and furthering the university's objectives of excellence in scholarship, research and education. And if you'd like to learn more about our mission at OUP, you can go to oup.com.au/mission. In this webinar, we're going to look at the following things on your screen. What are decodable texts? We're going to look at some of the different phonics-based decodable readers offered by Oxford, and we'll go a little bit through a brand new eBook library that we have available now, and we will look at Oxford levels. So what are decodable texts? Decodable texts that you choose for your reader will contain a very large percentage of words that incorporate the letter-sound relationships that you've been teaching them. As the reader learns more and more phonetic code and becomes more confident, they'll be able to read more complex decodable texts. In this video that we're about to watch, Dr. Desley Konza, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with, explains that decodable text gives students an opportunity to practice their developing skills. She says simply that you get good at what you practice.
You get good at what you practice. We're teaching children the letters and how to blend them together. Decodable texts match that. So decodable texts are generally written using the letter sound knowledge that the children have been taught. There will inevitably be sight words and perhaps a couple of content words, but the large percentage of that text is material that they should be able to read on their own. That is what will help them practice. You're giving them opportunities to practice what you've been trying to teach them. Of course, they should be being read, that the children should be hearing lots of other stories so that they're building their vocabulary, their world knowledge and more sophisticated language structures, because literate language, books are always have more sophisticated language than oral language. Of course, that should be happening, but for their own little bit of practice, they should start with decodable texts. That is clearly where the evidence goes, and it's logical, isn't it? You get good at what you practice.
So decodable texts contain a very large percentage of words that incorporate the letter-sound relationships that students have been taught. If you can see on the screen shortly, there's a whole range from Oxford that we will go through today. Some are fully decodable, covering just those letter-sound relationships and high-frequency words that students have been taught. Here you can see a snapshot that we'll cover today, and I'm so excited to be introducing you to our new eBook library for letters and sounds, which is available now as well. So Oxford levels. To level decodable text accurately, it really isn't effective to use a whole language levelling system. Oxford levels have been designed specifically to cover both decodable and whole language texts. So Oxford levels ensure that all students are engaged in reading through differentiation for every student. Oxford levels run from level 1 to 20 and ensure that each level students feel adequately challenged while also making progress. Each level offers new language, new themes, and a chance to practice what the student has learned already. Thousands of books have been levelled using this system and providing a wide range of text that will spark interest and engagement. So Oxford level texts are finely graded against a consistent set of criteria, so you can be confident that you're actually matching your students to books that will support their reading progression. These levels underpin all of our series. So the decodable series that we're looking at today all follow a structured phonic progression from Oxford levels 1 to 6. They're matched to letters and sounds phonics sequence. So letting you know exactly when new letters and sounds will be introduced in our decodable books. This means that as teachers, you can trust that students will encounter the same sounds at a certain level in any of the Oxford decodable series. So we know that you all use a wide variety of reading texts and levelling systems, so Oxford levels can be aligned to other levelling systems and take students all the way from Kindy to Year 6. As mentioned, all of Oxford's decodable series, excluding our read writing synthetic phonics program, follow a structured phonic progression matched to the letters and sounds phonics sequence from 1 to 6. You'll see a chart right now. If you're interested in receiving a chart such as the one you're seeing, showing this correlation between letters and sounds and Oxford levels, just pop your name, your full name, and the words levels chart into the Q&A area of the webinar now, and we'll make sure that you receive a copy of this correlation. Oxford OWL is the online destination for all your literacy resources. Oxford OWL provides a range of professional development resources, including video modules and case studies to keep you up to date with the latest research and best practice teaching strategies. So if you go to www.oxfordowl.com.au and register, you would have free access to a wealth of information. So firstly, I'd like to introduce you to Floppys phonics. They are decodable and are ideal for extra practice or use alongside any phonics teaching program. So Floppys can be used in a group work situation or for one-on-one teaching, one-on-one reading practice. The fiction books are a series of decodable Biff, Chip and Kipper stories. And if you've never heard of Biff, Chip and Kipper, don't worry, I'll introduce you to them properly shortly. Floppy's non-fiction books explore a variety of cross-cultural topics and build children's confidence as well. So free teaching notes are available on Oxford OWL for all the titles, and we'll look at this a little more closely shortly as well. So Floppys is part of the Oxford Reading Tree series, and the fiction stories in this series are centred around the Robinson family, who you can see on the screen. There's Mum, Dad, Biff, Chip, Kipper and Floppy the dog, and their best friends. So the stories are all about the children's lives, their school, their activities, their adventures, and of course their mishaps. And the very early stories tell of simple incidents which most younger children will be really familiar with. And humour is a really important feature in these stories. And when children discover the jokes and surprises within the stories and look at the illustrations, they realise that books really can be a great source of fun. Every book in the Oxford Reading Tree series tells a complete story from beginning to end and in a particular setting. So from a very young age, children understand that stories have that beginning, middle and end, which helps them with their writing and reading. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the children and Floppy further. So we have Biff, and Biff likes playing football and going swimming. She's always ready to join in with any game, and she likes making things, but got to be careful not to give her anything to hold, as Biff might drop it. Chip likes cycling and sports. He is very good at drawing, and if you want anything painting, ask Chip, as he's very, very careful. Biff and Chip are twins. Biff's real name is Elizabeth. When Kipper was a little boy, he couldn't say Elizabeth or Beth, so she became Biff. And Chip's real name is David, and Kipper couldn't say David either, so he said Chip, which sounds nothing like David, but everyone thought it was funny, so it stuck. And then you have Kipper, and he is Biff and Chip's younger brother. His real name is Christopher, but he couldn't say it when he was younger and always called himself Kipper. So this nickname stuck as well. And then we have Floppy. He is the Robinsons family dog. He is gorgeous and has floppy ears and runs around frantically digging, chasing and generally doing dog stuff. And his favourite thing to do at the end of the day is to flop. So let's have a closer look at the Floppys fiction book Pop. The front cover of the Floppys books can always be a great source of discussion with students. So you might say, what do you think this book is about? And quite obviously that would be about popcorn. The back cover also shares a great deal of information about the book and what is inside. It covers the Oxford level, the letters and sounds phase, and in this case it's phase 2, and the letters and sounds content in the book. The inside covers also contain a wealth of information for parents or reading group leaders. And inside the front cover, there's information to assist with guiding with a before reading conversation or saying the sounds together with the child that they will practice in the book, sounding out words together that are inside the book, or reading through any common words together. The inside back cover also contains support information for after reading and further information about blending the words. And inside the book, we can see very clearly what's happening and the popcorn making has begun. So the teacher's notes for Floppy's phonics fiction titles can be found on Oxford Owl under the Oxford Reading Tree tile, which is one of the green tiles. And teachers will find printable notes covering group or guided reading. There'll be strategy check tips, independent reading ideas, activities, suggestions that you can do with students, for example, linking sounds and letters with different letters in the middle, such as pat and pot, and suggestions for speaking, listening and drama activities, and not to forget suggestions for writing activities, which is a very big help to teachers. So on the screen now you'll see a page spread from Floppy's non-fiction series. This book personally is a real favourite of mine and is called On Safari and is an Oxford Level 5 title. So as with the fiction books, the inside and outside covers have meaningful information for the student, the parent and the reading leader. And the photography and information on the internal pages is extremely engaging to the young reader. So the teacher's notes for Floppy's phonics non-fiction titles can be found on Oxford Owl again, within the Oxford Reading Tree tile. So similar format to the fiction teacher notes, you'll find printable notes covering all the items we covered before, group guided reading, independent reading and activities and suggestions for the students. For example, they could recognise different and alternative ways of pronouncing graphemes that have already been taught, and suggestions for writing tasks that they might do or drama activities they might do. So the next series that I'm really excited to share with you today is Traditional Tales. These are enchanting tales that have been shared for generations and rewritten in a way that now every child can read them for themselves, whereas they may have been found to be too difficult in the past. They're perfect for introducing different cultures, traditions and morals from around the world, and there's a story map in the back of every book which really assists with the retell after reading. So we have a look at Get the Rat. So this is an Oxford Level 1+, Letters and Sounds Phase 2, and the front cover of the Traditional Tales books can always be a great source of discussion with students. So again, what do you think this book is about? I would say it's about an escaped rat. But if you have a closer look at the picture on the cover, there's there's other little pictures there too. So what might the crown picture indicate? Or perhaps there's a king in the story, and there's lots of discussion points from those little pictures. The back cover also shares a great deal of information about the book and what's inside. So again, we can see the Oxford level, the letters and sounds phase, in this case phase 2, and the letters and sounds content within the book. So the inside covers for this series again contain tips for reading together. And the other lovely thing about the traditional tales, inside the front cover you'll find a summary of the story. So it might have been many, many, many years since you've read one of the traditional stories, but at least you'll get a summary now to remind you of what the story is about. And you have guidance for a before reading conversation by talking about the cover and what might be involved in the story, and saying the sounds that the child will practice during the reading of the book, and sounding out any words together that are inside the book. And you might read together any of the common words. The inside back cover of the traditional tales series contains more support information for talking about the story after reading. And as I mentioned before, there's a story map to assist with retelling the story together, which is always fun for children to do. So here you can see inside this book, Get the Rat, and some of the detailed illustrations that you'll find in the traditional tales series. The children love talking about the mess the cat and the rat are creating, and the facial expressions alone tell lots of stories. If you have a look on page 3, there's a picture of the Queen, and she's clearly not feeling very well after seeing the rat on the table, but there's a lot to talk about in those pictures. So again, the teacher notes for traditional tales series can be found on Oxford Owl, free, totally free. There is also a detailed teacher handbook for this series, which contains full traditional story that many teachers really enjoy reading to their class. The background to the story is explained in these notes as well as it is in the front cover of the books. And as these stories have been told for many, many, many years, many are familiar to the children, and they can then form their own storytelling and writing ideas from traditional tales. We're going to revisit Biff, Chip and Kipper now and go back to a series called Biff, Chip and Kipper Decode and Develop. And this series provides a really unique bridge from phonics to richer reading. It's a series of decodable readers which supports children on their reading journey, and it features more exciting adventure stories about Biff, Chip and Kipper. Now, each of these Decode and Develop stories includes a high number of phonically decodable words and also a selection of high frequency words to support children decoding and language comprehension skills. Now, in the early stages, there are some wordless books which introduce children to stories, which feature really detailed illustrations to draw the children in. You can download these teacher notes for Biff, Chip and Kipper Decode and Develop on the Oxford Owl dashboard. Here's some inside pages from the Decode and Develop title, Highland Games. There's a mixture of phonically decodable words and a selection of high frequency tricky words. Tricky words can be read for the children or with the children to ease with their familiarity. There's a lot to discuss from the illustrations in these books, and the teacher notes will always be able to assist teachers with questioning ideas. So the teacher notes for Biff, Chip and Kipper Decode and Develop titles can be found on Oxford Owl as well. And the format of these notes follows a similar format to the Floppys phonics notes we looked at earlier. So speaking, listening and drama ideas, writing activities, and guided and independent reading. I'm going to move on to Project X now. The Project X books centre on the character of Max, and his friends Cat, Ant and Tiger, who find their watches have the power to make them shrink, which opens up a whole world of adventures. In Alien Adventures, a new alien friend called Knock joins the team on an exciting space mission that draws children in and makes them want to read on, find out more. So just for a little change of pace, we are going to listen to a little Alien Adventures animation, which early stage 1 and stage 1 students love, as it really familiarises them with the characters perfectly.
Meet Max, Cat, Ant and Tiger. 4 normal kids with 4 amazing watches. Watches that allow them to shrink. One day, the micro-friends find a strange creature hiding in the park. It is a visitor from another planet. Knock, the alien, has crash-landed on planet Earth and cannot get home. Together, the micro-friends teach Knock about life on Earth and have lots of fun adventures along the way. While on a school trip to the woods, they come across Knock's spaceship and disappear inside. Tiger presses a button and they blast off into space. So the question is, are you ready for the biggest micro-adventure of your life? It's out of this world.
So we'll have a little closer look at one of the Alien Adventures books called An Odd Bug. So just to walk you through, the front cover of the books can always be a great source of discussion with students, as with any book. What do you think this book is about? We can see that Max has his watch on and has shrunk to the height of blades of grass and leaves. And blades and grass and leaves. And the back cover also shares a great deal of information about the book and what's inside. So the Oxford level, the letters and sounds phase, and the letters and sounds content in the book. So in this case, it is a phase 2 book. So as you'll become used to with the Oxford decodable readers, the inside covers for Alien Adventures contain the parent support notes for before and during reading, and always provide tips to encourage the child to read at their own pace. So we'll have a look at a page spread for An Odd Bug, which is Oxford Level 2. And children can read these Alien Adventures books independently from the start, which really builds up their confidence and reading stamina. The inside back cover has a story map, as we saw in a couple of the other series, for retelling the stories together and other suggestions for discussion and activities to do after reading of the book. So Alien Adventures are motivating reads which develop positive attitudes towards reading as they confidently move through the levels. So this page spread you can see now is from Battle with the Beast, which is an Oxford Level 7, and shows really rich vocabulary and quite spectacular illustrations, which is really engaging for the children. So as the Oxford levels progress beyond the letters and sounds phases, the Alien Adventures stories become more challenging as children develop their reading skills. So action-packed stories and stunning artwork make this a real preferred choice for many children. So since my own boys and I read this particular story, the Cyber Bee Breakout, nerping has become a much loved word in my household. The visual of the nerps, which look a little bit like pigs, but the visual of the nerps swatting at the air with their trunks is something so original and engaging. And there's such rich vocabulary being used to describe the situation where the nerps were swatting at the swirling cyber bee swarm which circled them. It says, like a cloud of glitter hovering in midair, the jungle was filled with the sound of annoyed nerping. Such a good word. So we'll move on to another series, and it brings us to Project X Hero Academy, which is designed to turn young students into reading superheroes from the very beginning of their phonics journey through to Oxford Level 12. They have very engaging superheroes and character villains. So it's great for guided reading with free teaching resources on Oxford Owl, which include guided reading notes, activity sheets, Blackline Masters. They even have on Oxford Owl, they have badges and superhero masks and superhero puppets and bookmarks. At the very beginning of every Hero Academy story, we get to meet the heroes. These hero profiles feature at the start of each story, so readers can identify which characters will appear in the story and the special power that they're going to use against the villains. The villain profiles provide background information on the series villains, including their appearance, their catchphrases, their hobbies, their likes, dislikes, and a little warning about their villainous powers. So, for example, in the Champions Cup, villain Ray Ranter uses his robotic rabbits, these are called bunny oneies, to help him carry out his plans. As Hero Academy stories move through the levels, they provide plenty of opportunities for students to develop new vocabulary. So along with the rich vocabulary, children love the bright and engaging artwork on the pages. And the retail pages we've got in the back of the books develop comprehension skills such as determining importance, visualising and monitoring comprehension. So again, the teacher notes for Project X Hero Academy titles can be found on oxfordowl.com.au within the Project X tile. You're provided with a story summary and a phonics and vocab checker, along with support for before, during and after reading activities. Well, this is exciting. You are the first to hear about this brand new e-library for letters and sounds. It contains 100 fully decodable eBooks, which are sequenced in letters and sounds, sets and phases. This library can be accessed by both students and teachers when schools have paid for the subscription, which incidentally will be just $299 for 12 months. And you can be sure that students are reading books matched to the precise phonics level that you're teaching in class. So the eBook library covers letters and sounds phases 2 to 5 and contains 18 progressive sets. So the books in the library have been carefully selected from a range of our most popular series, including some of the ones we've covered today. And there's a few exclusives to the e-library as well, which you can't actually buy the books for. So let's have a look at what's featured inside the eBook library for letters and sounds. First, you'll need to log on to Oxford Owl and click on the eBook library for letters and sounds tile. So that's a purple looking tile. And once you have a subscription or a trial set up, this tile will allow you access to 3 further tiles. There'll be the eBook library of decodable books. Then there'll be the title coverage tile, which allows you to download an overview of the books within the eBook library, and you'll be able to see the letters and sounds coverage for the books. And the third tile provides Oxford Levels correlation information for you, which you can easily download. So let's look at what is featured inside the first tile in the eBook library for letters and sounds, which enables us to access the ebooks. Using the selector tool, so if you see my little yellow circle, you can easily search for books by Oxford level, letters and sounds phase, or it could be the series that you're interested in. So we're going to pop onto Oxford Owl right now and show you exactly what the e-library looks like. So let's pretend we're currently covering letters and sounds phase 2, set 5 in our classroom. If we go to the selector tool, we can select that phase and press apply. And the eBooks that now appear on the screen are all books that are at that level. And we'll have a little look at the Word Sparks book, which is Lots of Crabs. If we look at the inside cover of Lots of Crabs, we can see parent notes explaining how to use the book and focus words for discussion with an adult. With the Word Sparks series, it's important to understand the focus word boxes are there for the adults to read with the children when it feels right to pause the child's reading. We obviously don't expect that the child at that level will be able to read all those tricky words. We can see a focus word box in the blue shaded box on the left with the speech bubble. On page 12 of this book, there are pictures which provide an opportunity for discussion about the book that was just read with the adult and the child. And you'll see on page 13 on the inside back cover, there's tips for adults reading with the student for before, during and after reading. On the eBook library for letters and sounds, there is one interactive, what we call little blending book in each set in phases 2 to 4, so that children can practice blending. So using the selector tool again, we're going to clear our previous selection and choose the series Little Blending Books. And you'll see there are 14 little blending books in total. They're terribly cute. We're going to take a look at book 5 and we'll run through each sound for you just to give you an idea of what goes on in the little blending books.
Oh. Oh.
And then they'll have the tricky words that we can click on to hear what they sound like. No, go, and I.
No. Go. I.
So then once the children are familiar with the sounds, they're given words to test themselves. So you can see an example down the bottom is fan. So the children will practice saying that word fan, and then they will click on the picture with the fan to hear the words sounded out and blended, and they'll check if they were correct.
Fan.
And so on the right page, we can see the word hat. And so the student would then practice the sounds and saying the word. And when they're ready to check their answer, they just turn the page and press the word with the picture to hear the audio.
Hat.
So as you move through this particular book, if we go towards the end, there's now some short sentences for students to try. So for example, I go up a hill, and so they will practice that, see how they go with it, and they would then turn the page and find out whether they're correct in their practicing.
I go up a hill.
And then along the bottom of each page in the little blending books, you'll find your zooming icons as well as your bookmark and tools icons. The highlighter and underlining tools are perfect when you're doing whole class whiteboard work. So then if we move on, we'll have a look at what you would see on the second tile of the dashboard, which is basically, this is just a snapshot of some of the variety of titles available across the different Oxford series in the eLibrary for Letters and Sounds. You can see that it also contains books that are exclusive to the eBook library that you cannot purchase in hard copies. So the little blending books and the Word Sparks that we just looked at are exclusive to the eBook library for Letters and Sounds. This is a really simple and affordable eBook library for decodable texts. So that brings us to the end of this webinar, exploring the range of Oxford decodable readers. And we thank you so much for your time. If you've got any questions at all about anything covered in this webinar, please either post your question in the Q&A chat or send an email through to primaryeducation@oup.com, and we'll be in touch as soon as possible. Thanks again for your time, and I hope you have an enjoyable evening.